This video is going to have a look at a method of factorizing when we have three terms in our original expression. So by the end of the video, you will be able to factorize an expression with three terms. So when we are factorizing an expression with three terms, the expression we are normally starting off with will be in a format like what's on the screen. So ax squared plus bx plus c, which is a quadratic equation. To be able to use this method that we're going to look at in the video to factorize an expression with three terms like what is on the screen, this method can only be used when x is equal to 1. So that means that we won't have a value in front of our x squared. So it'll be x squared plus bx plus c. So when we are completing our factorization, when we have an expression that is in the format of x squared plus bx plus c, and remember our x values can be another letter, it doesn't have to be x. Our first step will be to remove any common factors. So if we've got a common factor between a, b and c, then we'll be able to go ahead and remove them. Then we need to list the factor pairs of c. So c might be 10, and we need to go ahead and list what numbers multiply together to get me 10. So 10 and 1, 1 and 10, 5 and 2, 2 and 5. So all of those combinations are going to multiply together to give me 10. It's also important when we are doing that step to remember if c is a negative number, so minus c, we need to be careful and list all of the different combinations that will give you a minus number. So to get a minus number, the combination when we're multiplying has to be a positive and a negative. So if it was minus 2, the factor pairs for negative 2 is going to be negative 2 times 1 and 1 times negative 2. But we'll have a look at that in a little bit more detail when we go through some examples. So once we have all of our factor pairs for C, our next step is to identify the factor pair that adds up to B. So we want to add each of our factor pairs together and see which ones add up to B. The one that adds up to B is going to be the factors that we use. And then we're going to use those factors to write it in our factorized form. So x plus, one of our factors plus x plus another one of our factors. So there are the 4 steps that we're going to use. And those 4 steps might not be making a lot of sense now, but go through and watch some of the examples that follow. They will make more sense after you've seen some examples. So let's start off by looking at our first example. Our first example is going to be x squared plus 5x plus 6. So in our example of x squared plus 5x plus c, we have got a b term, which is the term in front of the x, and the c term, which is the term at the end, and it's by itself without a variable. So our b value in this example is 5, our c value is 6. So we need to identify those to help us complete our factorization. So going through and applying our 4 steps. Our first step to remove any common factors. We don't have any common factors. We don't have any common factors across the 3 terms. So we don't need to do anything for step 1. So our second step is to list all the factor pairs of C. So that is our 6. So what are all the factor pairs of 6? What 2 numbers multiply together to give me 6? So I've got 1 multiplied by 6. I can have a negative 1 multiplied by negative 6. Because remember, 2 negatives multiply to a positive. I've got 2 times 3. And I've got negative 2 times negative 3. So they're all the factor pairs that multiply together to give me a positive 6. So now I need to go ahead and identify which of those pairs add up to my b value. So in this example, add up to 5. So which of these is going to add up to 5? So 1 and 6 is going to add up to give me 7. Negative 1 and negative 6 will add up to give me negative 7. 2 and 3 is going to add up to give me 5. And negative 2 and negative 3 is going to add up to give me to negative 5. So having a look at my factor pairs that I've now added together, there is one that gives me 5, and that is 2 and 3. So the factor pair that I'm going to use when I'm writing my final expression is going to be 2 and 3. So now that I've identified my 2 numbers that I'm going to use, I can write it in factorized form, and that is going to be x plus 2 and x plus 3. So I take my two factors, so 2 and 2, and put it inside my bracket, and then 3 and 3 inside my bracket as well. So once we have identified those factors in step 3 that add together to give me that b value, I can write in factorized form. So the factorized form of x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to x plus 2, x plus 3. So having a look at a second example, this time I've got x squared plus 6x plus 8. So my b value, the value in front of the x, is going to be 6, and my c value is going to be 8. So applying my 4 steps to complete the factorization, I've got no common factors. So then I'm looking for factor pairs that multiply to give me 8. So I've got 1 and 8. I've got -1 and -8. I've got 2 and 4. And I've got -2 and -4. So now I need to go and add each of those pairs together to see which ones give me a total of 6. So 1 plus 8 is equal to 9. -1 plus -8 is equal to -9. 2 plus 4 is equal to 6. -2 and -4 is equal to -6. So I've got a pair that add up and give me 6. So the two factors that I'm going to use in my factorized form answer is going to be 2 and 4. So now that I've identified those two factors, I can write the factorized form of x plus 2 and then x plus 4. So again, I'm taking those two factor pairs. So again, I'm taking those two numbers in the factor pairs, and I'm using that in my factorized answer. So the factorized form of x squared plus 6x plus 8 is equal to x plus 2, x plus 4. So having a look at another example, this time I want to factorize x squared minus 4x plus 3. So looking for my b and c values, my b value is going to be -4. So remember, always look at the sign in front. If it is a subtraction sign, think of it as a negative number. So my b value is -4, my c value is 3. So I don't have any common factors I can remove. So looking at step 2, list all the factor pairs of c. So that is going to be all the factor pairs of 3. I'm going to have 1 and 3, and I'm going to have -1 and -3. The small numbers are nice and easy because they don't have a lot of factor pairs to list. So going ahead and seeing which one of those add up to my b value. And remember, my b value is -4 because it is a subtract 4. So I'm looking for which pair adds up to -4. So 1 plus 3 is equal to 4. -1 plus -3 is equal to -4. So that is the factor pair that I'm going to use. So when I write my factorized answer, I'm going to use -1 and -3. So I can now go ahead and write my factorized form. And my factorized form is going to be x minus 1 and x minus 3. So because my two factor pairs are negative numbers, I can use subtraction in my factorized answer. So the factorized form of x squared minus 4x plus 3 is going to be x minus 1, x minus 2. So having a look at the fourth example, I've got x squared minus x minus 20. So let's go ahead and complete the factorization for that three-term expression. Having a look to identify my b and c values, my b value is going to be -1. So remember, when there's no number there and x is by itself, there is always a 1 in front of it. So it is going to be -1 is my b value, and -20 is going to be my c value. So remember, we need to look at it and the sign in front, and if it's a subtraction, it becomes a negative number. So my b value is -1, my c value is -20. And you can actually write that underneath the expression as your first step if it is going to help you to remember. So I don't have any common factors to remove, so I can go ahead and look for my factor pairs of c. So what factor pairs multiply together to give me -20? And because it is -20, I need to have one positive and one negative number in my factor pairings. So I've got 1 and -20, and I've also got -1 times by 20. I've got 2 times negative 10 and negative 2 times 10. And I've also got 4 times negative 5 and negative 4 times 5. So they are all my factor pairs of negative 20. I can now go ahead and see which one of those is going to add up to negative 1. So go ahead and adding up all my factor pairs together. 1 plus negative 20 is negative 19. Then I've got positive 19. I've got 2 plus negative 10 is negative 8. I've also got a positive 8. 4 plus negative 5 is going to be negative 1. And I've also got negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. So now I need to identify which one of those add up to negative 1. And that is my combination of 4 and negative 5. So now that I've got the factor pairs that add up to my B value, I can go ahead and write in factorized form using my factors of 4 and negative 5. So my factorized answer is going to be x plus 4, x minus 5. So the factorized answer of x squared minus 1 minus 20 is equal to x plus 4, x minus 5. So just be really careful when there are subtraction signs, especially in that C value, that you are making sure that you've got the right amount of negative numbers in your factor pairs. So now let's have a look at another example. This time we are factorizing 2x squared minus 16x plus 14. So this time you can see that we do have some common factors we can remove, and we've got a common factor of 2. So now we can divide all of our terms by 2. So 2x squared divided by 2x squared, 16x divided by 2 is 8x, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So I can write x squared minus 8x plus 7 inside a set of brackets, and then I'll put my common factor of 2 outside of those brackets. So now I've got x squared minus 8x plus 7 as a term that I can go ahead and factorize. So ignoring the 2 outside of the set of brackets for the moment and focusing on the term inside the brackets, and that is going to be x squared minus 8x plus 7. So my B value is going to be negative 8, and my C value is going to be 7. So having a look at the factor pairs for positive 7, it is going to be 1 times 7 and negative 1 times negative 7. So adding those factor pairs together to see which one adds up to negative 8. So I've got 1 plus 7, which is equal to 8. And I've got negative 1 plus negative 7, which is equal to negative 8. So having a look and seeing which one adds up to negative 8, it is my factor pair of negative 1 and negative 7. So now I can go ahead and write that in my factorized form using negative 1 and negative 7. So that will be x minus 1 and x minus 7. And then I need to go back and don't forget about the 2 that I removed as my common factor. So that 2 is going to sit on the outside. So the factorized answer for 2x squared minus 16x plus 14 is equal to 2, x minus 1, x minus 7. Having a look at our last example, in this example we want to factorize 3x squared minus 12x minus 36. So having a look to see whether there is any common factors I can remove, and I've got a common factor of 3. So when I remove the common factor of 3, I'm left with x squared minus 4x minus 12 in the set of brackets, and then outside the bracket is going to be the common factor of 3. So now when I go ahead and I go to factorize it, I can focus on the 3 terms inside of the brackets. So I can focus on x squared minus 4x minus 12, and then I can complete my factorization based on those terms. So my B value is going to be negative 4, and my C value is going to be negative 12. So listing all of my factor pairs of negative 12, I'm going to have 1 and negative 12. I'm going to have negative 1 and 12. I'm going to have 6 and negative 2, negative 6 and 2, 4 and negative 3, and negative 4 and 3. So identifying which one of those factor pairs now add up to my B value of negative 4. So going through each pair, 1 plus negative 12 is negative 11, negative 1 and 12 add up to 11, 6 plus negative 2 is equal to 4, negative 6 plus 2 is equal to negative 4, 4 plus negative 3 is equal to 1, negative 4 plus 3 is equal to negative 1. So identifying which one of those add up to -4. So the factor pair that I'm going to use is going to be -6 and 2. So writing the first part of my answer in factorized form, it is going to be x minus 6, x plus 2. And then I need to include my common factor of 3 that I removed in my first step outside of the bracket. So the factorized answer for 3x squared minus 12x minus 36 is equal to 3, then x minus 6, x plus 2. So there's some examples of how we can go ahead and we can factorize an expression with 3 terms. Not all expressions with 3 terms we can factorize using this method, but if you've got an expression with 3 terms, this is the first method that you try using. Later on in the topic, we'll look at another method, which is a little bit harder, but you can use it when this method doesn't work, when you factorize an expression with 3 terms.